So I'm Mike Hodgson, the CEO of Serabi Gold, and today is the 27th of May. I just come back from Brazil, having been down there for about 2 weeks, and I've been there for the last monthly for the last 4 or 5 months, and pleased to give an operational update on Palito, development update on Coringa, our new project, and also an exploration update, which we're very excited about too.
Mike, well, thanks for joining us. It's been a while, but it sounds like from that introduction you've been quite busy jumping on planes and getting on location, which helps, meeting people, which helps, and actually having a look at what's happening on the ground. So thanks for joining us. Well, look, I want to kind of keep it short and punchy today because obviously it's look, I'm going to say tough markets. We've all come off the back of COVID. Everyone's in the same boat, but it's about what you do about it. So what have you been going down to Brazil to do? What problems are you trying to fix?
Well, look, we spoke, I think, at the back end of last year, maybe the very beginning of this year. We had I'm not going to dwell too much on COVID, as you say. Everyone knows about it, and if people don't understand what happened during the pandemic, well, they never will. 2021 was really the hangover of COVID, and we were behind with our development. A lot of that was down to supply chain issues, not getting key equipment. And Q1 2022. We had a tough start to the year. We had in our South Chico ore body at Palito, we had entered into an area. We were mechanized mining. It had been drilled. It looked pretty good after the drilling. But once we got into the mine, into that part of the mine, very unique part of the mine, we found something quite different to what the drill hole suggested. That's kind of occasionally and sadly what happens. And it just proved very difficult to mine. So we just had to do a mining methodology change on the fly. Again, due to the lack of development, we weren't overwhelmed with alternative opportunities. So we had a tough first 2 months, which was pretty difficult to recover. Pleased to say, so I've been going down there every month, really, really trying to help the guys out on very direct day-to-day mining problems. We've really, and it's really worked. We've actually pulled it together. We've actually month on month, things have improved. March was the best month, and then April was the best month yet. And May, we're homing in on hopefully what will be the best month yet of the year. So, long may that continue, and will be things good. I will say one other thing too. At the end of last year, we managed to during the pandemic, we lost a lot of key people returning home, not wanting to be in a remote location, and we had a lot of turnover of people. Wasn't easy. Glad to say, end of last year, we got the original general manager back, the guy who built Palito back in 2012. He's back in the company. He's brought his team back. A lot of familiar faces are back. These are the guys that are building Coringa. Super important. I'm so comfortable having those guys back in the company.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess people absolutely critical. Part of this, and I guess the original guys coming back together is good news too. But it's a fairly low base right now. Okay. You've had to adjust your guidance for the year at the beginning because it was a sort of less than auspicious start to the year. Can you say that the problems you encountered in January have gone away? Because it also impacted February slightly. I mean, do you see this continual growth of numbers that you're seeing in March, April, and hopefully May sustaining?
I believe so, yes. I think now we can actually, the level of production, 3,000 ounces thereabouts. I really am confident, hopeful, very hopeful. We can now maintain that going forward for the rest of the year. So, I'm hopeful we're going to exceed our restated guidance. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's good news. So let's talk about where that's coming from, though, right? Okay. So I don't want it to be like a hope. I want it to be sort of based on a solid foundation. So the Palito is what improving. I mean, South Chico sounds like it didn't quite go according to plan. And what's happening at Coringa? So where are these ounces coming from?
We've put more effort into Palito, admittedly. We've moved a few people from South Chico to Palito, where Palito we've got a lot more optionality. We've got many more veins. We've got a lot of new faces. We've got some fantastic grades. And coming out of an area called Chica de Santa, where we've got 3 veins or 3 levels. I can't really show. I haven't got any samples in front of me, but honestly, amazing copper and gold grades coming out of there at the moment. And we're really beginning to expand the mine again. We've got, I say, multiple fronts or faces in Palito, which allow us to work several areas. We shrank the mine during the pandemic just because we needed simplicity with less people. Now we're growing it and expanding it again. And we've got a lot of options. We're working about 6 or 7 different veins now with about on 2 or 3 levels. So a lot of options, which is really good. Sao Chico, with the mining methodology changing, going back to selective mining, the grades are really improved a lot. We were sort of struggling with sort of 4 grams, a big dilution problem, trying to mechanize an ore body. Mechanized mining had worked really well in Sao Chico for many years, but I think we just pushed it too far. We started mechanizing a part of the mine, which essentially wasn't mechanizable, if there is such a word, using that methodology. We went back to selective mining, which means less volume but better quality, and so it's ticking along pretty nicely. And we're finding we're now extending that over more areas. It does mean that Palito is going to do the heavy lifting really in 2022, and Sao Chico a little less, but it's still going to contribute and have a significant contribution. So that's the way it's going to pan out for the rest of the year, and probably going into 2023 as well.
Right. So Palito going according to plans. Sao Chico, not so much. You've got this. We've talked on numerous occasions about what the ore sorter is doing for you. I mean, you've got one. How do you deploy that at all the various sites? Because obviously, Coringa is was the acquisition you made a couple of years ago. You expect it to be kind of more of the same, high grade underground, but there's a bit of capex to be spent there. There's a bit of time to develop that thing. Is there any way that can contribute to the numbers today? I mean,
well, that's a great point and a very relevant point. There is some quite interesting ideas we're evolving at Coringa. We started into the Serra zone, one of the ore bodies at Coringa, about sort of 3 months ago. We hit the ore. Pretty surprised the grades we were getting. Certainly
positive or negative, Mike? Surprised, yeah, good?
Positive,
right, okay.
Very positive. Some really quite amazing channel sample grades in that early development. Narrow vein, high grade, but the nice thing was the vein was very kind of relatively regular, and it meant with the development, not to get too technical, it meant we could employ a methodology called split blasting, which meant whereas you advance the tunnels through following the vein, you could actually blast the ore in the way separately, which meant the product we were generating a smaller stockpile, but a much higher grade stockpile. So it got us thinking, well, we've got space at the Palito plant, is it worth thinking about transporting this high grade stock to Palito rather than just leaving there sitting, sleeping for the process plant to be built at Coringa? Why don't we actually think about moving it?
But had you not thought of that before?
We did, and 3 years ago when we bought the asset, we did look at the trucking option of never having a plant at Coringa and trucking ore to Palito. Back then, there were a couple of challenges. Number one, the road between Coringa and Palito was largely not paved. It was, in the rainy season, tough, really tough. Bogged down with Sawyer trucks, and you just wouldn't want to entertain the idea. 2 things have occurred. One, the road has been paved. So the road between Coringa and Palito, which is about 200 kilometer trucking, 160 kilometers is now a beautiful paved road. That helps. 2, there is a huge oversupply of trucks in Brazil, and that has meant why Sawyer traffic. The state to the south of our mining area is called Mato Grosso, generates the vast majority of Brazil's soybeans. They're all being transported up the road, which goes past the front door of Coringa and Palito, transporting soybeans, great big road trains. So that's why the road was paved in the first place. So this obviously is bringing improvement. It's brought a lot of trucks, and there's now too many trucks for the work that's out there. So when we looked at this 3 years ago, reserve grade of 8 grams at Coringa, it cost us more or less 3 grams per ton to move that ore from Coringa to Palito. So it wasn't a very attractive option. We didn't look at it. The upshot of what I've just said is the costs now are 1 gram. So you look at it.
Despite inflation and all of in terms of fuel and trucking costs, etc., it's dropped by a third.
It's hard to understand, isn't it, with the price of diesel?
Yeah.
But diesel is actually controlled and subsidized in Brazil. The government have on a number of occasions tried to raise the price of diesel, not with much success. So, but those are the numbers. I mean, really.
So what does that do for you? I mean, it goes from three grams per ton cost down to 1. Suddenly does that change plans at Coringa? Because obviously we've talked in the past about Coringa probably needs to build a plant there, a bit of a capex for that and other infrastructure. I can't quite remember what that number totaled, but with these trucking costs, does that dramatically change things either in the short term or the long term?
Well, it certainly allows us to take an advantage of an economic situation. I think that's the truth. And you could argue, well, if the prices go up, we're even thinking about buying our own trucks and doing it ourselves, which would even make it even cheaper. I mean, yes, we're looking at a process plant cost, a big capital cost at Coringa. And look, it's always going to be better to build your plant where the mine is, obviously. And we're still committed to that. That's the plan. That's the long-term plan. But, we can take advantage here of a short-term, economic opportunity, which might become a medium-term economic opportunity. And we can actually get Coringa.
Build cash reserves, I'm guessing.
Well, exactly. We can use Coringa ounces now instead of waiting 18 months, which is the current plan. So those Coringa ounces now will actually help Coringa as a development project wash its face. Mm-hmm. And if we produce more next year, it'll do more than washing its face. It'll actually generate cash flow. And that, of course, is you're generating a war chest. When you come to build the plant, okay, you do that. So let's just look at that. So how much was the ore sorter that you've got up at Palito? Built, installed, $1.8 million.
Okay. So I don't know what the trucking cost, you'd have to tell me. Would it be feasible to get another ore sorter and put that down at Coringa rather than ship everything up? Because trucking costs are trucking costs, right?
You read my mind.
Okay, good.
Because that's exactly that. The name of the game here is to actually truck the high-grade part of the material from Coringa to Palito and leave the low-grade at Coringa for the plant at some point in the future. If you've got an ore sorter there, you can actually you can make everything high-grade because the contrast between the ore at Coringa and the waste at Coringa is probably the best we've seen yet. And obviously, the trucking cost is the same whether you're trucking low-grade or high-grade. So if you could truck a pre-concentrate, that's even better. So maybe there's an interim solution here, which is putting a crushing plant in, putting ore sorting facilities at Coringa, and trucking a pre-concentrate, which means you're sending the creme de la creme to Palito.
The good stuff. Okay, that's really interesting. Actually, you sent us an image before we kind of got on here, and there's it's a picture of a pile of rocks. I'll let you describe what we see from what's in front of us. Maybe I'll pop that up now if the editor can do that. So, what are we actually looking at here?
What we're looking at here is in front of the crushing plant. We're looking at two piles, and you can see on the left-hand side, you can see a red pile, and I don't know if you can really make it out, but you can see little white sort of pieces inside it. Now, those white pieces are the vein material, and the deep red, rich red, is the waste rock, and it really is chalk and cheese. It's amazing. On the other pile, to the other side, it's more grey. And this has kind of always been the problem with the Sao Chico ore and to a point in the Palito ore, where sometimes the waste rock kind of masquerades a little bit and looks like the vein material as well. So you kind of get ore in the waste and waste in the ore. But Coringa's beautiful. It's just brilliant. It's absolutely a sharp contrast. So, we've already moved about 300 tons of Coringa ore to Palito. We've crushed it. We're doing the ore sorting test work with our ore sorter at Palito right now. And I fully expect very good result.
Okay, so Mike, I just want to be clear here with Coringa. Is this a change of plan? Is this permanent, or is it, as you say, a short-term / medium-term thing?
No, we're taking advantage of an economic situation and improving infrastructure really, and it just helps us, as you said, use your words, build a war chest and help Coringa ounces get them into cash flow sooner. And allow us to build up cash in readiness, because we're still committed and working very hard on getting this installation license. As you know, all that permitting is moving forward, it's all pretty good. We've got this extra step we're doing now, an indigenous study, which is going to demonstrate zero impact. We fully hope that we're going to get positive news in early Q3 on all of these fronts, and ultimately we'll get the installation license in our hands, which will allow us to construct the plant. But the plant's not going to be cheap. And at the end of the day, it's going to take 12, 14 months to get gold through it. So this idea is to get ounces, runs on the board nice and early, and that's it. And if in the meantime we come up with a technical argument that actually we should stay with that situation, of course, we'll look at it. That's it. But certainly long term, the plant is still the main plant, because I believe there's a lot of resource to be found at Coringa, a lot of resource, a lot of follow on from what we've got today. So that we've got to bear that in mind as well.
Okay, well, let's move on here, because like I said, we're going to want to sort of a punchy review of what has been going on, what is going to go on, which is, and the third sort of leg to the stool here is exploration. We've always talked about the potential of exploration as a big part of the growth story for you. You haven't been able to do much for obvious reasons, but what are you doing about it now? What does the rest of this year look like?
Well, as you know, our exploration is generally focused on the Palito Complex, in and around Palito, and we've actually focused more on larger scale. We've got a lot of resources at Palito, which is more high-grade vein. Similarly at South Chica, similarly at Coringa. Our exploration department has actually focused more on larger scale deposits and anomalies, etc. As we try, we know our address is good for finding larger scale ore bodies, and that would actually change our world, obviously. So, the emphasis has been more on that. I'd actually like to share a couple of images with you to sort of help explain.
Please go ahead.
Explain all. So Matt, just as a reminder, this is the Palito Complex. We've got the Palito mine up here, and we've got the South Chico mine out here. And over the last sort of 18 months, we've been talking about this really fascinating geophysical high that runs right the way through our tenement, east to west. And we've got, coincidental, anomalous geochemistry with it, copper, gold, other base metals, brilliant. And we've got a whole sort of raft of areas where we focused in on and we've sort of got tighter geochemistry. And we rank these 1, 2, all the way up there. So we've got sort of Cinderella down here, and Sao Domingos here, and Ganzo, and all these other ones up here. We've just done, the one we chose to start with is number 2 here, which we call Matilda. And the reason we did was the magnetic anomaly was so strong there. The geochemistry was the best, and it was a beautiful concentric, coincidental anomaly, which we really liked the look of it, and it was very consistent. So we got on the ground there, did some more geochemistry, and bit the bullet and drilled 3 holes. So I'm just going to show you another image of it, sort of closer up, what Matilda actually looks like. So we're now looking at a plan view of Matilda. That's zooming in on that sort of previous image. And we're looking at something that's now, you can see on the scale bar, 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. And you can see there the contours in various colors, the lines. They are anomalous geochemistry of gold, high-grade gold, copper, molybdenum, and other metals. So it's classic. And the shaded red there is where we've actually got we've also got the high grade, the highly anomalous magnetite. A magnetite is always very significant in these types of deposits. If it is one, porphyry, of course, magnetite is coincidental with the high grade core. So we got pretty excited about this, about the high grade geochemistry, highly anomalous geochemistry, and the really strong magnetic anomaly too. So we drill 3 holes, and the thing is, this thing is 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. You don't know where you're drilling. You just hope you're going to catch something, and that's exactly what we did. I'm just going to show you another image of a tip. What these porphyry type deposits actually look like, and what you're actually targeting. So this is what a classic porphyry looks like, and you can see. I know it's a bit technical and a bit sort of. But you've got this series of zones, alteration zones, and you don't really know where you are in the system. This is what you're after. This is what's called the potassic zone. It's rich in copper. It's rich in magnetite. That's why you get the magnetic anomaly. And all around it, you've got lower but anomalous copper and gold. So, maybe Matilda is we've got this on surface. We're picking up the copper and the gold anomalies from the whole zone, and the magnetite is coming from a deeper part there. So the key to porphyries is the surface down to this thing within 200 meters, because that's kind of depth of a typical open pit. And so really that's the name of the game. So you drill first. You don't know whether you're over here or whether you're in the middle of it or whether you're over there. You don't know. You need a few holes. But the whole idea now is, having drilled 3 holes, 2 of the 3 holes have returned very meaningful intersection lengths or widths, let's say, and we've certainly got grades that are basically in keeping with what a porphyry copper gold deposit would be. You can't demonstrate any kind of economic viability from 3 holes, but we are trying to now do a lot of multi-element analysis. So we look at these other elements like strontium and lead and copper and nickel and lithium and all this sort of stuff, to try to actually help you vector, in other words, know where you are inside the system. Are we here? Are we here? Are we here? Or are we down here? To try to understand. That'll help us target the next holes to try to nail this thing. That's the name of the game. So, really, we've very excited about this, and our exploration team, they're really all over it at the moment. Okay,
so three holes. Is this going to be the one and only focus? Because I'm just trying to understand the amount of budget you can allocate to this. Is it shallow drilling, deep drilling? What's the total cost that you're allocating?
This is the focus for the drilling. The other areas, of which we've got 4 or 5 more. We're still at the geochemistry stage. So they're all being advanced at the same time to actually find the geochemical part. So we'll actually hopefully have 2 or 3 more of these in time. But certainly the next drilling was more than likely going to be more holes into this once we actually know where we are in the system. There's no point drilling these things more than 250 meters, because that's the depth of the pit. So if you find that you're up here and this thing is like 400 meters below your feet, well, forget it. That's beyond our capabilities. But if we're closer, good. We've been talking to the Anglo-Americans and a lot of other sort of bigger companies to come here and basically look at maybe if we get a real tiger by the tail here. Serabi hasn't got the firepower to sort of drill one of these things out, but we might be able to get a partner to come in and help us. It's always a sort of moot point. You don't want to sort of you want to keep your powder dry till you kind of really know what you've got. So we'd like to try to advance this and really understand before we speak to too many people. But certainly we'll probably be open to some kind of agreement, JV agreement with a company that might move this forward for an earning or something like that. That's all to play for.
All to play for. So just answer my questions in terms of, I get that elsewhere, with the potential with Coringa building up a war chest and taking advantage of the economic situation at the moment, but how many dollars will be going into this? And does that distract you from other more obvious, maybe quicker returns? Or do you see exploration as an essential part of the growth story of this company?
I think one can't ignore this. If we've got something here, we need to sort of package this up quickly. One of the things we might go back and do here is a bit more ground geophysics, which is very cheap, to try to enhance the magnetic and better understand where this platecic zone is. And we might actually employ that in quite a few of our other areas to actually get better resolution of the magnetics before we actually drill them. You get a bigger bang for your buck then in terms of your drilling. And that's all stuff we can afford to do. And with the budget we've got, sort of $3-4 million in exploration, we can afford to do that. If we start trying to drill this out because we think we've got a porphyry, we'll blow our budget in 5 minutes. So it is important to try to use geochemistry and geophysics as long as you can. We're converting a rig to do deep geochemistry and drill the top of the top part here to try to get an indication there. All stuff that's cheap and meaningful exploration, and avoiding drilling very deep, expensive holes. I think we have to leave that for another day.
Okay, so you're not going to blow your brains out on that, but you're very sure that certainly the conversation we've had around Coringa sounds quite exciting to me in terms of cash generation, short-term cash generation, rather than drilling for the sake of drilling and at some point, having to look at raising money for kind of capex, et cetera. So I guess it's agile thinking that I think maybe, well, certainly I am, and maybe the market gets excited about there.
I think we've got to recognize where we are. Our share price isn't great. The markets are rubbish or not great. We don't quite know where gold's going, so we've got to be cognizant of all of that. So we are focusing on bringing back value for shareholders. I know a lot of people are very disappointed where we've got to, but I do think we're hoping for positive news on permitting at Coringa pretty soon. That's all moving in the right direction. We've got this very exciting opportunity, I think, there with taking advantage of the improvement in the economics to actually get Coringa ounces into our cash flow a lot sooner than we previously forecast, and basically avoiding a big capital requirement. And the ever-improving Palito. I will say one more thing about Palito and Sao Chico as well. We're spending a lot of money underground drilling there. We've got a drilling contractor and they're really accelerating. We're planning on putting out a new 43-101 resource reserve on Palito before the end of the year, which I think will be very positive. I say we're focusing on a lot on resource growth and really putting in place a much improved mine plan there for not just immediately, but for the longer term as well. So, I think by the year end we're going to be we'll be in good shape, and we'll really know how well we'll have a plan for Coringa. Not just a short-term plan, but hopefully an intermediate plan. The ore sorting opportunity, I think, will have shown itself. So yeah, I think I'm very excited about that. And obviously, just to finish off, the icing on the cake is putting some polish on this Matilda anomaly, or prospect as I like to call it now.